You work for my husband. Victoria Hastings said it like a fact. Not loud, not hysterical, just certain. The courtroom didn't erupt. It contracted. Every person present felt the air change density. Judge Frank Caprio's hand paused halfway to his water glass. He set it down without drinking and looked up slowly. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hastings. Could you repeat that? You work for my husband. Victoria tilted her head slightly, adjusting the collar of her cream blazer. Senator Michael Hastings. I assume you've heard of him. Caprio's expression remained neutral. I work for the people of Providence, Mrs. Hastings, not for any individual senator. Victoria smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Let's not play games, Your Honor. My husband's Appropriations Committee funds judicial budgets. So when I say you work for him, I'm being technically accurate. Miss Reyes, the court clerk, went perfectly still in her chair. Officer Santos, standing near the gallery, shifted his weight but said nothing. Caprio removed his reading glasses and folded them carefully. Mrs. Hastings, we're here to address traffic violations, not discuss political relationships. Of course. Victoria's smile widened fractionally. I just thought it was important to establish context before we waste everyone's time. The words hung there. Waste everyone's time. As if the legal system was an inconvenience she'd graciously agreed to endure. Caprio picked up his pen. Miss Reyes, please read the charges. Miss Reyes stood, her voice steady but careful. Case number 2027-TR10483. State versus Victoria Hastings. Charges include reckless driving in a school zone, failure to yield to emergency vehicle, verbal intimidation of an officer, and destruction of a traffic citation. Victoria examined her nails. French manicure. Perfect. Additionally, Miss Reyes continued, there's a charge of attempted bribery of a law enforcement officer. That got Victoria's attention. Her head snapped up. Excuse me? You offered Officer Santos $500 in cash to, quote, make this disappear. Victoria laughed. Once, sharp. I offered a donation to the Police Benevolent Fund. There's a difference. Not when you hand it directly to an officer during a traffic stop, Caprio said quietly. Victoria's attorney, a man named Preston Vance, rose smoothly. Mid-50s, silver-haired, expensive suit. Your Honor, my client was simply expressing gratitude for Officer Santos's professionalism. Any suggestion of impropriety is... Mr. Vance. Caprio didn't raise his voice. Sit down. Vance blinked. Your Honor, I haven't finished. Yes, you have. Sit. Vance sat. The room absorbed what had just happened. Judge Caprio had cut off a $800 an hour attorney mid-sentence, and the attorney had obeyed. Victoria's jaw tightened. Your Honor, I don't appreciate. Mrs. Hastings, Caprio's voice remained level. You'll have your opportunity to speak. Right now, I'm going to hear from Officer Santos. Officer Mateo Santos approached the witness stand. Early 30s, calm demeanor. The kind of cop who'd seen everything and reacted to nothing. He placed his hand on the Bible and was sworn in. Officer Santos, Caprio began. Tell us what happened on April 3rd. Santos nodded. I was monitoring traffic near Elmwood Elementary School. At approximately 2:47 p.m., I observed a black Mercedes sedan, license plate HSTNG1, traveling at approximately 48 miles per hour in a posted 5-mile-per-hour school zone. Children were present? Yes, Your Honor. School dismissal was in progress. Crossing guard was active. The defendant's vehicle passed within 6 feet of children in a marked crosswalk. Victoria leaned toward her attorney and whispered something. Vance shook his head slightly. Did you pursue? Caprio asked. I activated my lights and siren. The defendant continued for approximately 2 blocks before pulling over in front of the Park Lane Cafe. Did she explain why she didn't stop immediately? Santos glanced at his notes. She said she didn't realize I was pulling her over. She thought I was responding to an emergency. Despite your lights and siren being directed at her vehicle? Correct, Your Honor. Caprio wrote something down. What happened when you approached the vehicle? Santos's expression remained professional, but something shifted in his eyes. I asked for license and registration. The defendant provided her license, but not registration, she said. He checked his notes again. I don't keep paperwork in my car. Call my husband's office if you need it. Did you explain the violations? I did. I informed her she'd been traveling 48 inches, a 15, failed to yield to my emergency vehicle, and failed to provide registration. How did she respond? Quote, Santos paused. Just half a second. She asked if I knew who she was. The courtroom went quiet. And did you? Not at that time, Your Honor. She told me she was Senator Hastings' wife. Then what happened? I began writing the citations. The defendant exited her vehicle. She got out of the car during a traffic stop? Caprio's eyebrows rose. Yes, Your Honor. I instructed her to return to her vehicle. She refused. She approached me and asked if I understood what I was doing. Meaning? She said. Do you understand what you're doing? I told her I was issuing citations for traffic violations. She said, You're making a mistake that will cost you your career. Victoria shifted in her seat. That's not what I said. Caprio raised a hand. Mrs. Hastings, you'll have your turn. She fell silent, but her expression promised consequences. Continue, Officer Santos, Caprio said. I informed the defendant that threatening an officer was an additional violation. She laughed and said it wasn't a threat, it was a fact. Then she reached into her purse. The room leaned forward collectively. I asked her to stop. She said she was getting her checkbook. She pulled out an envelope with cash and held it toward me. She said, There's $500 here. I'd like to make a donation to your department's fund. And I'd appreciate if we could resolve this quietly. What did you say? I informed her that accepting money during a traffic stop would be bribery. I told her to put the money away. She set it on the hood of my patrol car and said, It's just sitting here. If you pick it up, that's your choice. Caprio leaned back. Then I issued all citations and informed her that the attempted bribery charge would be added. She took the citations, tore them in half, and threw them on the ground. Then she got in her car and drove away. You have body camera footage? Yes, Your Honor. Miss Reyes, please play the footage. The monitor flickered to life. The footage was clear. Bright afternoon, Mercedes sedan, Officer Santos approaching. Is there a problem, officer? Ma'am, you were traveling 48 miles per hour in a 15 zone. I need your license and registration. Handing over license. I don't keep paperwork in my car. Call my husband's office if you need it. Ma'am, you're required to provide registration during a traffic stop. Victoria. Do you know who I am? Santos. No, ma'am. Victoria. Victoria Hastings. Senator Michael Hastings is my husband. Perhaps you've heard of him? Ma'am, I still need to see registration. Victoria exits the vehicle. Quote, Ma'am, please return to your vehicle. Do you understand what you're doing? Santos. I'm issuing citations for traffic violations. You're making a mistake that will cost you your career. Ma'am, threatening an officer is selm. I'm not threatening you. I'm explaining reality. My husband chairs the Appropriations Committee. Police funding goes through his office. I'm simply suggesting you think carefully. She reaches into her purse. Santos tenses. Relax. Relax. I'm getting my checkbook. And in Messer, we have mating and Tessal. Relax privated. And in Messer did poged. We have no that is never mine. And in Messer did poged. Relax private. Relax private it is never mine. And in Messer did poged it is never mine. And in Messer did pog. She pulls out an envelope, opens it, shows cash. There's $500 here. I'd like to make a donation to your department's fund, and I'd appreciate if we could resolve this quietly. Ma'am, I can't accept money during a traffic stop. That's bribery. Setting envelope on patrol car hood. I'm not giving it to you. I'm just leaving it here. If you pick it up, that's your choice. Santos. Ma'am, step away from my vehicle. Are you seriously going to do this? Yes, ma'am. Here are your citations. He hands her the papers. She takes them, tears them in half, drops them on the ground. Call my attorney. You'll regret this. She gets in her car and drives away. The footage ended. The courtroom was silent. Caprio looked at Victoria. Mrs. Hastings, is there anything in that footage that's inaccurate? Victoria's face was composed, but 2 spots of color had appeared on her cheeks. The video lacks context. What context? I was late for a luncheon with the governor's wife. I was stressed. I may have spoken inelegantly, but I certainly didn't threaten anyone. You told Officer Santos his actions would cost him his career. I was warning him that issuing frivolous citations would reflect poorly on his record. That's not a threat, that's advice. And the $500? A donation. As I said, timed precisely during a traffic stop where you were being cited? Coincidental timing. Caprio stared at her for 5 full seconds. Then he turned to Santos. Officer, did you feel threatened? Yes, Your Honor. In what way? Santos chose his words carefully. It was clear that Mrs. Hastings expected her husband's position to exempt her from traffic laws, and that she expected me to understand that refusing to cooperate would have professional consequences. Did you pick up the money? No, Your Honor. I photographed it on my patrol car, logged it as evidence, and left it there. When I returned after processing other calls, it was gone. Caprio nodded. Thank you, Officer Santos. You're excused. Santos returned to his position near the back of the courtroom. Caprio looked at Victoria. Mrs. Hastings, would you like to tell me your version of events? Victoria stood, smoothed her blazer, walked to the witness stand like she was approaching a podium at a fundraiser. She didn't sit. She stood. Your Honor, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding. My husband serves this state with distinction. His office has secured millions in funding for law enforcement, infrastructure, education. We're not above the law, but we do expect a certain degree of professional courtesy. Professional courtesy, Caprio repeated. Yes. Is it really necessary to drag a senator's wife into traffic court over a minor speeding incident? Couldn't Officer Santos have issued a warning? We're all on the same team here. What team is that, Mrs. Hastings? She blinked. I'm sorry? You said we're all on the same team. What team? What team? The people who keep this state running. The people who understand how things work. Caprio leaned forward. Help me understand something, Mrs. Hastings. You were traveling 48 miles per hour in a 15 zone near an elementary school. During dismissal, children were crossing. Do you believe that deserves professional courtesy? I believe it deserves perspective. Was anyone hurt? No. Did I endanger anyone? Debatable. I'm an excellent driver. I had complete control of my vehicle. At 48 miles per hour in a school zone. Victoria's expression hardened. Your Honor, with all respect, I think you're allowing political considerations to influence your judgment. The room went silent again. Different silence this time. Dangerous. Political considerations? Caprio's voice dropped. My husband is a Republican. You were appointed by a Democratic governor. I can't help but wonder if that's coloring your perspective. Preston Vance looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Caprio set his pen down, removed his glasses, folded them, set them aside. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried. Mrs. Hastings, I want to be very clear about something. I don't care who your husband is. I don't care which party appointed me. I don't care about your luncheon with the governor's wife. I care about the law. And the law doesn't recognize professional courtesy for speeding in school zones. Victoria opened her mouth. Caprio raised a hand. I'm not finished. You drove recklessly near children. You attempted to use your husband's position to avoid consequences. You offered money to a police officer during a traffic stop. You destroyed legal citations. And now you're standing in my courtroom suggesting that I'm biased because of your husband's political affiliation. He paused. That kind of entitlement is exactly why we have traffic courts. Because the law applies to everyone, including senators' wives. Quote, end quote. Victoria's face had gone pale. Your Honor, I didn't mean— Sit down, Mrs. Hastings. She sat. Caprio turned to Miss Reyes. Do we have the school zone camera footage? Yes, Your Honor. Play it. The monitor showed a different angle. Wide shot of the street in front of Elmwood Elementary. Timestamp, 2:47 p.m. Children everywhere. Backpacks. Crossing guard with stop sign. Parents waiting. Then, a black Mercedes entering frame at high speed. The crossing guard jumped back, pulling 2 children with her. The Mercedes braked hard, swerved slightly, kept going. One of the children fell. The parent ran into the street to pick her up. The footage ended. The courtroom was silent. Caprio looked at Victoria. You said you had complete control of your vehicle. Victoria stared at the blank monitor. I didn't see. You didn't see the crossing guard? The stop sign? The children? I was focused on the road. The children were on the road. Mrs. Hastings. Her attorney leaned over and whispered urgently. Victoria shook her head. Caprio pulled up another document. Miss Reyes. Who is Sarah Millbrook? Miss Reyes consulted her notes. She's the crossing guard at Elmwood Elementary. She's worked that position for 6 years. Is she here? Yes, Your Honor. An older woman stood from the gallery. Late 60s, gray hair pulled back, wearing a bright yellow safety vest. Even though she wasn't on duty, she walked to the witness stand and was sworn in. Mrs. Millbrook, Caprio said gently, can you tell us what you remember from April 3rd? Sarah Millbrook's voice was steady but soft. I've been a crossing guard for 6 years, Your Honor. I know how to read traffic. I can tell when a car's going too fast or when a driver isn't paying attention. And on April 3rd, that car came through way too fast. I had my stop sign up. I had children in the crosswalk. She wasn't slowing down. I had to grab 2 kids and pull them back. One of them fell, skinned her knee pretty bad. She was crying. Did the driver stop? No, sir. She hit her brakes for a second, then kept going. Didn't even check if anyone was hurt. Victoria whispered something to her attorney. He shook his head firmly. Thank you, Mrs. Millbrook, Caprio said. She nodded and returned to her seat. Caprio turned back to Victoria. Mrs. Hastings, I've reviewed the evidence, the body camera footage, the school zone camera, Officer Santos's testimony, Mrs. Millbrook's testimony. Do you have anything you'd like to say? Victoria stood again. Her composure was cracking now. Not completely, she was too controlled for that, but fractures were showing. Your Honor, I apologize if my driving was more aggressive than appropriate. I was under stress. I had commitments. I made a mistake. But I don't believe this rises to the level of, you nearly hit children in a school zone. Nearly, but I didn't. Because Mrs. Millbrook reacted in time. I had control of my vehicle. You were traveling over 3 times the speed limit. Victoria's voice rose slightly. Your Honor, I think we both know what this is really about. You want to make an example of me because of who my husband is. This is political theater. Caprio's expression didn't change. No, Mrs. Hastings. This is accountability. Something you seem unfamiliar with. I'm more accountable than you'll ever know. Do you understand the scrutiny my family lives under? Every decision we make is public. Every mistake is magnified. We give our lives to public service. Then act like it, Caprio said quietly. Victoria stopped. Public service means serving the public, not using public office as a shield. Your husband's position doesn't grant you immunity. It grants him responsibility. And part of that responsibility is modeling respect for the law. He paused. You don't get professional courtesy for endangering children. Victoria sat down slowly. Her attorney leaned over, whispering rapidly. She wasn't listening. Caprio reviewed his notes. Here's what I find. You drove recklessly in a school zone at 3 times the posted limit. You endangered children. You failed to yield to an emergency vehicle. You attempted to bribe a police officer. You destroyed legal citations. And you've shown no genuine remorse. He looked up. The base fine for these violations is $1,840. But I'm not interested in just taking your money. That means nothing to you. Victoria's head snapped up. Instead, here's the sentence. You'll pay the base fine, but you'll also complete 200 hours of community service as a crossing guard at Elmwood Elementary. Victoria's mouth fell open. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You'll work alongside Mrs. Millbrook 5 days a week, morning and afternoon shifts. You'll wear the vest, hold the sign, protect the children you nearly hit. Your honor. My schedule. You'll make time, Mrs. Hastings. Or you can choose jail time instead. 30 days. Your choice. Preston Vance stood quickly. Your honor. My client has significant commitments, social obligations, charitable work. Requiring her to serve as a crossing guard is appropriate, Caprio said. Sit down, counselor. Vance sat. Caprio continued. Additionally, you'll complete a defensive driving course. You'll write formal apologies to Officer Santos, Mrs. Millbrook, and the Elmwood Elementary School community. You'll participate in a restorative justice program where you'll meet with parents from the school zone. And you'll produce a public service announcement about school zone safety that will air on local television. Victoria's face had gone white. You're trying to humiliate me. No, Caprio said quietly. I'm trying to teach you empathy. Something money and position clearly haven't. My husband will... Your husband will what? Mrs. Hastings? The room went silent. Will he call me? Will he try to have me removed? Will he threaten my position? Caprio leaned forward. Let me save everyone time. I don't care. I've served on this bench for over 20 years. I've faced pressure from mayors, business leaders, political operatives. None of it matters. Because I don't serve them. I serve the law. He paused. You work for my husband. That's what you said when you walked in here. Well, let me correct you. I don't work for your husband. I work for the people of Providence, including the children you nearly ran over. Victoria's hands were shaking slightly. This is a witch hunt. No, this is justice. Preston Vance stood again. Your Honor, we request a postponement to consider our options. Denied. The sentence stands. Mrs. Hastings has 2 weeks to begin her community service or report for incarceration. Your choice. Caprio looked at Victoria. Do you understand the terms? She stared at him. Silent. I need to hear you say it, Mrs. Hastings. Her voice came out thin. I understand. Good. This court is also implementing new protocols. Any attempt to use political influence to interfere with traffic enforcement will result in automatic escalation. Any contact from elected officials regarding pending cases will be logged publicly. Any evidence of intimidation will trigger ethics investigations. He turned to Miss Reyes. These protocols are effective immediately. Notify all relevant departments. Yes, Your Honor. Caprio picked up his gavel. Court adjourned. The gavel came down. Victoria sat frozen in her chair. The gallery began emptying. Officer Santos remained at his post, expression neutral. Mrs. Millbrook walked past Victoria's table. She didn't say anything, just made eye contact for 2 seconds. Victoria looked away first. Preston Vance gathered his files. Victoria, we can appeal this. I'll have papers filed by... Don't. Her voice was hollow. Victoria, this is ridiculous. We can. I said don't. She stood, smoothed her blazer, walked toward the exit. At the door, she paused, looked back at Judge Caprio. He was already reviewing the next case file. She left. Week 1. Victoria showed up at Elmwood Elementary on Monday morning wearing designer workout clothes and sunglasses. Mrs. Millbrook handed her a safety vest. "You'll need to wear this." Victoria stared at the bright yellow vest like it was toxic. "Do I have to?" "It's required by law, Mrs. Hastings." She put it on. The first morning, she stood at the crosswalk holding the stop sign. Cars passed. Parents dropped off children. Some recognized her. Phones came out. Photos were taken. Victoria's jaw tightened, but she stayed. A little girl approached the crosswalk. Maybe 6 years old. Pink backpack. Victoria raised the stop sign. Cars stopped. The girl crossed. Halfway across, she looked up at Victoria and smiled. "Thank you." Victoria nodded stiffly. The moment passed, but something about it lingered. Week 3. Victoria stopped wearing sunglasses. She learned children's names: Jaden, Sophia, Marcus, Emma. Mrs. Millbrook watched her carefully. One morning she said, "You're getting better at reading traffic." Victoria didn't respond. But the next day, she was paying closer attention to cars approaching too fast. Week 5. A black SUV came through the zone at 35 miles per hour. Victoria's hand shot up with the stop sign. The SUV didn't slow down. Victoria stepped into the street, held the sign higher. The SUV braked hard, stopped. 3 children crossed safely. Mrs. Millbrook approached. "That was good instinct." Victoria looked at her hands. They were shaking slightly. That car was going way too fast. Yes, it was. Someone could have been hurt. Mrs. Millbrook didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Week 8. Victoria completed the defensive driving course. She attended the restorative justice meeting with parents from Elmwood Elementary. One father stood and said, "My daughter Sophie is the one who fell when you sped through. She had nightmares for 2 weeks. She was afraid to cross streets." Victoria listened, really listened. When it was her turn to speak, she didn't make excuses. "I was careless. I was distracted. I prioritized my schedule over your children's safety. I'm sorry. Those words aren't enough, but they're true." The father nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that." Week 10. Victoria filmed the PSA. The director wanted her to read from a script. She asked if she could speak freely instead. They let her. She stood in front of Elmwood Elementary. No makeup team, no PR handler, just Victoria. "My name is Victoria Hastings. 3 months ago, I drove through this school zone at 48 miles per hour. I nearly hit children. I thought I was above the law because of my husband's position. I was wrong." She paused. Speed limits in school zones exist for a reason. Those signs aren't suggestions. They're protection for the most vulnerable people in our community. I know that now because I've spent 10 weeks standing where those children cross every day. I've watched them trust that drivers will stop, that adults will protect them. Another pause. I broke that trust. If you're watching this and you've ever sped through a school zone, thought the rules didn't apply to you, or believed your schedule was more important than a child's safety stop, slow down. Pay attention. Those seconds you save aren't worth a child's life. The PSA aired that week. It went viral, not because it was polished, because it was honest. The final hearing. Victoria returned to Judge Caprio's courtroom in mid-August. She'd completed all requirements: 200 service hours, apology letters, defensive driving, restorative justice, PSA. She stood before the bench. Caprio reviewed the file. "Miss Reyes, status? All requirements completed, Your Honor. Letters submitted. Hours verified. Course completed." Caprio looked at Victoria. "Mrs. Hastings, what did you learn?" Victoria thought carefully. "That position doesn't grant perspective. Experience does. I spent 2 months protecting the same children I endangered. That changed me." "How?" "I see people differently now. Not as obstacles to my schedule, as people with their own lives, their own value, the children I helped cross, the parents who thanked me, Mrs. Millbrook, who taught me more about service than any political fundraiser ever did. Caprio nodded. Mrs. Millbrook is here today. Would you like to address her? Victoria turned. Mrs. Millbrook sat in the gallery. Mrs. Millbrook, thank you for your patience and your example. You do work that most people don't notice and don't value, but it matters more than I understood. Mrs. Millbrook smiled faintly. You're welcome, Victoria. First names, not Mrs. Hastings. Victoria. Caprio leaned back. The court accepts your completion. The suspended portions of your fine are remitted. Your record will reflect successful rehabilitation. He paused. But I want you to remember something. You came into this courtroom believing power protected you. It doesn't. Character protects you. And character is built through the humility to admit when you're wrong and the courage to change. Victoria's voice was quiet. I understand, Your Honor. I hope you do, Mrs. Hastings. Case closed. The gavel came down. Victoria left the courtroom and found Officer Santos waiting near the exit. They made eye contact. Officer Santos. Mrs. Hastings, I'm sorry for how I treated you. You were doing your job. I tried to intimidate you out of doing it. That was wrong. Santos nodded. I appreciate you saying that. For what it's worth, you were right. About all of it. I know, Santos said simply. Then, but thank you. They shook hands. Outside, Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from her husband. Saw the news coverage. Call me. She didn't call. Not yet. Instead, she walked toward her car, past the courthouse, past the cafe where Officer Santos had pulled her over. She drove to Elmwood Elementary. Afternoon dismissal was starting. Mrs. Millbrook was at her post, vest on, stop sign ready. Victoria pulled over, got out. Mrs. Millbrook? The older woman turned. Victoria, what are you doing here? I was thinking. My service hours are done, but the kids still need help crossing. Would you mind if I came back? As a volunteer? Thanks for watching. Also, Mrs. Millbrook studied her for a long moment, then smiled. I'd like that. Victoria nodded. I'll be here tomorrow. She got back in her car, drove home slowly, carefully. 5 miles under the speed limit the entire way. 6 months later, Judge Caprio received a letter. Handwritten. On personal stationery. Dear Judge Caprio, I've been volunteering as a crossing guard at Elmwood Elementary for 6 months now. I wanted you to know that it's become the most meaningful part of my week. Mrs. Millbrook and I have trained 2 new volunteers. We're working with the city to improve signage in school zones across Providence. You told me that position doesn't grant perspective. You were right. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to learn that. Not everyone would have. Respectfully, Victoria Hastings. Caprio read the letter twice, then filed it with the closed case. He picked up the next file. Another day, another courtroom, another chance to remind people that the law serves everyone, or no one. Policy Update. Bulletin. August 2027. Providence Municipal Court adopts new protocols. Political intimidation triggers automatic escalation. Elected official contact regarding active cases logged publicly. School zone violations receive mandatory safety review. Anti-influence firewall active across all traffic cases. 4 additional jurisdictions. Reviewing model for adoption. Judge Caprio's courtroom isn't about punishment, it's about transformation. If you believe moments like this matter, subscribe to All Rise for more stories of justice, redemption, and accountability. Drop a comment. Have you ever had to learn a hard lesson about accountability? What changed you? Remember, real power isn't about the title you hold. It's about the responsibility you take.